Assalamu alaikum. Today is the day 18 of PHP in DDCDP23 and part 8 of the series within it of building MVC framework in PHP. The following topics are included in this lecture. We will be creating a response redirect class which we can use for header redirects in our application, and then we will be improving the container we have in this MVC framework to return a singleton object. So this is a very interesting addition to the container. And then the bulk of the lecture will be about setting up middlewares, which is an interesting phenomena in MVC frameworks. So most of this lecture actually will be middlewares. So let's start. We will start with improving some aspects of our framework and maybe creating some helper classes, just like for example redirect response class, which we can use instead of the header function we have been using. And similarly we will start with improving container. So if you go to the container class at the moment, the get function gets us an instance of a class which is passed to it, the name of the class. So if we examine the code, both portions of it, each time we use the container get method, it will return the new class for us, this new class. Similarly here it will return a new class. So we can prove that this is not singleton. Professional container libraries basically have singleton also. So when we request a class, it should always return the same object, and we can prove it. Let me go to the dispatcher, but first let me create a dummy class sort of in framework, or maybe in the source here directly, just to test whether this thing is right or not. So I'll create a maybe dummy test.php. Okay, here the namespace will be app, because we are doing it directly inside source directory. And then the class, here we will in the constructor of the class, we need to have a properties, maybe public static count property, and we will initialize it with 0. But once the class is initialized, we will increment it by 1. So this could be base code. So each time, and this property is static so that it is accessible even as a self, and it belongs basically, we already have studied the static property, so you should go through that. Okay, so this is the class. Now we need to initialize this class via container. So we'll come to dispatcher here, and at the top of the handle URL function here, I just need to, because we need to just test it, so, and container is passed to the dispatcher class, so we can access container. So container, this dot container, and get, sorry, this dummy class. So dummy class,
dummy test colon class.
And we need to use that as well, but it has already included it for us. So okay, so this is going to be, this will give us an object of the demo test class, right? But if we need to dump now what the value of the, rather, if we dump it, or DD is fine because we don't need rest of the program to run. So class 1 for now, and let us do it. So what should be the value of the count variable we have created? 24. What is missing?
So the constructor is not provided.
Yes, you are right. Thank you. Okay, so the count is 1, right? This is 1. But if we run this again, maybe class 2, and once more class 3, and use this as the output, dummy test. Sorry, in the code, where is dummy?
Inside the source.
This we are not using, we are using this dot count. It should not be this, it should be self. Is this okay now? But with a dollar sign. Okay, so even here we are checking in the dispatcher now. This is dispatcher. We are checking if class 3 equals equal to class 1. So they are not equal, right? Similarly, we can dump 3 now. How can we access the count property? So each time the class is in, it means that constructor is run for each time. This will create a new instance, and we are saving it in 1. This is new instance, this is also a new instance. Each time we are calling the get in the same server request of the container class, it will create a new object for us. So that's a problem, kind of. It is not efficient. At times we need just one object throughout the server request. So what we can do, any ideas? If we go to, I will comment out these lines just to check things. Okay, so in the container.php, the problem is that each time we request a class, it returns a new instance of it. Okay, so what we can do is at the top of the class, just like we have a binding, we can use it also, but for easier, so it's private, we will call it maybe initialized equals this code. So this is an array, it will save the initialized objects for us, right? So first time when we get the class at the start of the function, we will just if class array underscore key underscore exists what class in this dot initialized. It means if we are passing this class name to the get function, if that class exists here in the initialized array,
Yes, sir.
the key, so we will just return what that initialized array class. So return $sign initialized and then the class. So this will be the object each time. So it is at the start of the get method. So if that exists, it will return it. This code won't run because you know if you have a return and it is activated, the rest of the code won't be
Yes, sir.
run. So it will instantly give us the object of that class. So now we need to change the logic here so that we can store the initialized classes here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so each time a class is initialized, for example this one, this return new class, okay, and we have a new class here as well, return new class. So we should save this new into this initialized array. So maybe for example here we assign it a main class or whatever variable equals this, right, and we will return main class. Right, but before returning we should save that in initialize as well. This dot initialized, this is an array, so the name of the class, it is sent to the function as class, right? So it will be $class and the value should be main class. So this is for the main one. If you remember, we have this one also. So here we initialize, this part is get constructor is null, so what we do is we return the new class. So here as well we should save it. So the new class, it will be this dot initialized and the name of the class is this equals and we should assign it. Why are we assigning it to a variable? Anybody? We can directly assign it with the new, like this, class is equal new class and then return new class. But why are we doing it this way? Because if we use new class twice, it will again be called twice.
Yes, sir.
So that's why we save it in a variable first, then assign the variable to that array like this and return the variable. Got it? Similarly, do we have any new place as well, other place? Where we need to do this? I think we are good to go.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now if I refresh the page, this one,
Commit to
What are you expecting if I uncomment all this code?
1. True, sir. This one
1. What does this mean? Now if any number of times we call this dot container get dummy test, so it will return the same object all the time, even if you call it 1000 times. So this is singleton. You can call it singleton also. You have made the container singleton, kind of singleton, right? And if we now compare this class 3 with class 1, so hopefully it will return true. Now it's true, right? So this is a very good improvement we have done to our container, and I will, for your reference, I will comment out this code again. Okay, so first things we have done well. We have made the container singleton. So now if we get anything from the container, it will be the same object. The next is, if you go to the entity controller code, and here if you can see we have some header location functions. This is not the proper way of using headers in a framework. So we should create a class which is known as response redirect response. Normally frameworks have such classes, and the container is passed, the controller is passed these URLs. Okay, so we already have a response class. Here we have this response class. Okay, but we don't have any constructor at the moment. So what we can do is we can create a constructor for it, so that we can extend it. But let us create a new class first inside the HTTP framework folder, and we will call it redirect response.php. The namespace should be namespace framework HTTP, and the class is redirect. What should it extend? Extends response. Here we can have a constructor, public function __ construct, and it will be passed a URL. Okay, simple, it should be a URL. So string URL should be passed to it. That's it. Okay, but the parent does not have a constructor, so we can make a constructor inside the response also, the main here. So it will also be passed a constructor which should be null by default, right? Also we can have code which should also be, by default should be 200, right? So you can have all these values as default into the constructor. Here what we will do is, we have the body, the string body is this. Also we should have string body equals this $sign body. Okay, so what this will do, this will set this dot set body equals whatever the body is, right? Body. So if it is empty, it will set it as empty. This dot set what it is, code, set HTTP code, right? So it will be code. So for example, if it is 500 error or something, 400, so it will be set this way. Also, this is the URL, right? So how can we use the URL here if the URL is passed?
So we can store it inside the headers array.
Yeah, so that will be set header, this dot set header. We already have set header function. It will be passed the key. Let us check set header this. So string header, it should be here actually. So string header, rather we should change it. It should have two values. What? Key and value. So the key will be key and value will be value, right? Like this, right? So here we will pass set header function URL of this, right? Whatever is the URL. So what should be the key? This is question for redirect. What we use for headers? Location.
Location, yes sir.
Okay, so location colon and location is what? $sign URL. So we have set up the header redirect. And one change we need to make so that it is printed here as well. The headers are printed here also, because the send function should print the headers. So after this, how can we print it? For each this dot headers as key and $sign value, right? So we will use the header function here. So no matter how many headers we have in this array, we will print them, use the header function for that. So header means if, for example, it is a location. So how can we do it? We will just use $sign key colon $sign value. That's it. Is it okay? Do you think this is fine? I think this is fine. We may use exit after the header, but for now I think this is okay. Okay, so I think we have done this now. This the set header is location and URL, right? But here we should have a this we are not going to do here. Why? Anybody? Yes, we are not going to use, we can use body and code but not URL in the, we should not use it in the parent class. We should use it in the child class, right? So let me remove this. We can do it here, but we will remove it from here, and in the child class, actually I want to show you something, and that is in the child class redirect response, in the constructor we should be passing URL, then and the rest is empty. Here I need to, we should call parent colon under construct so that the parent class is called, and it has all the three arguments empty. So we will just use this, and here we can use the same thing. This dot set header location is URL. So this is an extra feature we have done.
So why do we need the parent constructor here?
Because in case there is some functionality, so here we are in the parent, whatever is passed, okay, it is set here, set body, set HTTP code. So this will not be done then if we don't use the parent constructor. Got it?
Yes.
So by default now 200 will be, and body by default will be empty.
So it is empty.
And so in the constructor, this one, we are passing string, and string is assigned to this, and this constructor will have two default values.
Yes, sir.
So we can even change it here. For example, this is test, so the body will be this,
Yes, sir. Then the status.
and the status will be, for example, 400, so
Yes, sir.
it will be separate. But if we don't pass anything, so default will be set.
Right.
Then this dot set header, so we already have set header method here, and the location is going to be URL. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So the redirect response now should be passed just the URL in its constructor.
Yes.
Okay, so let us try if it has no errors. Hopefully it will be working. So where should we do it? In the controller. Let us do it in the process new one. Here we are using header redirect and then exit, right? So we will directly, and this is one of such instances where we just need to use a new keyword for, because we are using this class for redirection one time only.
Yes, sir.
So we can use return new redirect response, and it will be passed
URL.
this URL. This will be this is going to be a string, right? So dot this is fine now, and we'll comment out these two lines. Okay, so return new redirect response,
Yes.
this dot whatever it is, the same code actually, but we will now be using redirect response for it, and at top of the page we should include redirect response. So wherever you need to use header functions, you will use the redirect response. So if things are fine, let me check. How can we test it? New exist in container 34. P container.php. This is the initialize class equals new class. Okay, I think we have a problem in the way the error is actually, I just tested it. We are getting the same old error of string. So actually the response class initially was getting returned from the container because it didn't have any constructor. Now it has a constructor. We have added two string values to the constructor of response class. So if I go to the response class, we just changed in a while. This is the response class. So now it has a constructor of string. That's why it tries to create this instance. So what we can do is we should use this set method in the container now, so that response is immediately returned once it is asked. So we'll go to the container, the services.php, and at the end of the file here we can use this code. So container.set response class, this is the name of the response class. So if this is asked by the application, it should return the new response class. That's it. And we should use the response class here as well. Use response, and it is actually famous HTTP response. So hopefully this will resolve the error, and it does. So to recap, we have changed the container to be a singleton now. So once a class is initialized by the get method, so the next time it is asked, it will return the same object. And we have created a redirect response class, and this redirect response class basically has a constructor which extends the response class, and we created a constructor here in the main response class also. So in the entity controller we have added, instead of header code, we have returned the redirect response this. So now we will be trying if it is working. So I'll try to add a new student. Where is it supposed to be redirected once the form is submitted? The view page. So if it is working, means the redirect class is working, otherwise there will be some errors, and there is an error. (146), and the error seems to be here. What if we can change it to a variable, maybe? You should be concatenating this as well. Is this okay now? And the URL should be passed to the redirect response. Actually we needed to use this as a string. If I refresh the page, maybe we need to go to new again. It's giving me 44 now. Why is it so? Student / this. Okay, there again is this initial slash missing. So what we need to do, we should add a slash at the start also. If I submit it again, now it is showing this. Okay, one problem, and you have to remind me at the end of the class. You can see all the 3 messages of success have been displayed now. Do you see? This is one of the problems in if there is a flash message and it hasn't been output, so it will remain in the queue, and once we are outputting a newer message, the older ones will also get concatenated with it.
Yes, sir.
So we should be doing something for this also at the end of the class. So do remind me that, right? But at least the new redirect is now functioning well. So wherever you have to use the redirect, what you will have to do is, what we will do, we will just call new redirect response, and that's it. So you in frameworks you normally have something like this, new redirect response,
Yes, sir.
and you pass the URL, that's it, and return it. Okay, and this is a type of response also, because we are extending the
Yes, sir.
response class. Okay, done with this part. Now we are moving towards the most important part of the lecture, and that is something called middlewares. Okay, middleware. So what is middleware? Any guesses what can be middleware? We have a request and then we have a controller action.
Yes, sir.
So something which takes place between a request and a controller action. So let me draw something. If we go to freeform, new, where is the shape? So a rectangle. So for example, this is a request from your browser, and we have created a class for it, request class, right? And then this is going to be to reach some controller action.
Yes.
So this is action, controller action, and this is going to be request. And we can insert arrows also. That's how it is. So you request something via the request class, and it goes to the controller action, corresponding controller action, some URL, right? And it replies, the controller action replies with the response. So this is going to be a response. It returns a response. The controller action returns a response to the where the request was sent. Okay, but we can catch this request here via middlewares. Okay, so for example, we want some changes to the request or response from the action. What we can do is we can create classes and call it middleware. So middleware class 1, middleware 1, for example. This is 2, and so on. So what it will do, it will give us a chance to either change request or responses prior to getting it in the browser. So for example, this is some package sent from you for you, right? Request is something which you want to send to the controller action, but in the way it can be altered, changed, or whatever via these middleware classes. Got it?
Yes.
So that's the concept, and we will now start what middleware is in the code. At least you should know the theory. And all frameworks, major PHP frameworks, they have the concept of middlewares. There's a, do you know what PSR is? I think we have discussed it briefly. These PSR are standards for PHP. So one of them is PSR 14. 14 or 15?
PSR 4.
Yeah, PSR 4 is for autoloading, and PSR 15 is for middlewares. You can study this document yourself as well. PSR 15 is HTTP server request handlers. Okay, so it has basically two elements to it. The PSR means 15 this PSR 15 HTTP server request handlers means you should implement middlewares via these two techniques or parts. One of them is request handler class, and the other one is middleware. We will basically implement these two, and they have the corresponding two interfaces also. Okay, so the interfaces are request handler interface, and another one is middleware interface. So first let us create these two, request handler interface first and the middleware interface, and then we will move on to creating the corresponding classes also. let's start. We can download this PSR ourselves, but let us quickly create them, and I will quickly copy all this code so that we can save some time. It's request handler interface, because they are related with the frameworks HTTP, so we will do both here. Okay, so in the HTTP, or maybe in the HTTP we can add one further folder, and we will call it middlewares or middleware, whatever. Okay, here we will create a new file which is going to be request handler interface.php. okay, and first thing first, PHP tag, and then namespace, and namespace is HTTP framework, HTTP middleware, and the interface should be, I think I have already copied the class, so interface. So interface is going to be a request handler interface, and it has just one method which is handle, and what is passed to it, we'll change it for now. It will be request. In our case it should be request, the request class, right? So if it is going to be a request, we can use request class like this. Okay, so the interface is request handler interface, and it has just one method. So the class which it implements this interface will have just one method which is handle.
Yes.
And request will be passed to it, and the return value should be response class. So let us use that as well here. I am not very good in typing. All right, so we have created the first interface which is called request handler interface. Now the second interface which is called middleware interface.php, and let us quickly copy that as well. It also has just one method, and that is public process method. Okay, so first things first, namespace is going to be framework HTTP middleware, and interface middleware interface, and it has just one method which is called process, and it should be request, the request class. You can use interfaces also, but for now we should use request, and the response, and this one is going to be what, request handler class, request handler. Okay, and the response should be of type response. Let us use these two for now, or maybe they are not needed at the moment. Okay, so we can use the use statements for request handler and response also. Okay, this middleware interface will have a process method called process. So any class which extends this interface will have this process method. Request will be passed to it, and the second one is request handle class. So actually it has two parameters. This one is the class which we have created here, actually from the request handler class.
Yes.
So once we do it, you will understand what the second parameter does, but for now just realize that the request handler interface will have just one handle method, and request is passed to it, response is returned, and the middleware interface will have the request also, but this class also, the class of this instance interface, right? So this is the only difference. So the middleware will have this class also as the second parameter. Now let us start writing classes. So let us first do the request handler class, request handler dot php. Request handler dot php, what it will do is, the namespace should be framework HTTP middleware, and the class should be request handler. What should it do? Implements request handler interface. And as soon as we do it, what does this red line mean?
Yes.
That we need to implement that method which is here.
Also handle method.
So it's handle and request is passed to it. Okay. So the method should be public function handle, and what is passed to it? Request. Right. Public function handle and request is passed to it, and here we can use the request class, this one, and it returns response, and we can use that as well. Is this okay?
Yes.
Okay, it should, this handle should return what? A response. Okay, the request is passed to it and response is returned from it. Okay, we will have a private property array. It's going to be an array, and it should be called, you can name it anything, but it is called middleware or middlewares equals an empty array for now. Okay, like this. So this will have the class names, for example class 1, class 2, class 3, whatever.
Yes.
The middlewares array will have classes. Okay, and this function is handle. So what will happen is, if for example there is a class and I call it maybe for example greeting. For now I will just add it like this, greeting. Okay, so what this handle method will do, it will create a new instance of this greeting.
Yes,
And return the response. If there are two classes, greeting 2, and even a third class in this array, greeting 3. Okay, so all these 3 will be classes.
Yes.
And this handle method will create instances of all these classes, right, and return the response. So if we go to the free form diagram, so these are those classes, for example. So it will, the request handle class handle method will create instance of this class, and if there are even more, I can change it to greeting 1 for now, for example, greeting 1, and so on, right?
Yes.
So that's the concept. But we will be using the class names of colon class, you already know.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let us first create those classes, then we will, so they are now called middlewares, and we can create those middlewares, because this will be the client code, application code, not in the framework. So in the source directory, because this will be about your own business logic, right?
Yes, sir.
So where should we create?
In the source directory.
In the source directory. Here we will create another folder, and we'll call it middlewares, right? So here we will create a new file, we will call it welcome middleware dot. This is a good practice normally to add a middleware to the class name, so that you know this is a middleware, but not necessary, right? So welcome middleware, and what should it do? It should implement the namespace is app/middlewares, and the class should be welcome middleware. What should it implement? Shabas, tell me. The middleware interface, this one which we have created.
Interface. Inside the HTTP.
middleware interface, right? This interface it should implement, right? And it has a process method.
Yes, sir.
So I will go back to the welcome middleware implements what?
Middleware interface.
Middleware interface, and it automatically adds it to the use statement, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now it will have a line. Why? Because that method needs to be implemented, and the method is public function process, and it is passed two things. One is request, $request, and the other one is request handler. Request handler. Now we have created this class, and the name should be request handler or anything like this, right? So this process method is pass two things, and the return value should be response, and the response should be added here as well, response, and also the request. Is it okay now? What is the declaration of must be compatible with this? Are we not returning response from there? Response, actually we needed to have use response and use request in the, so this response means now the response, and it is now compatible hopefully with the its middleware.
Yes.
Right? No error now. Okay, this is request and this is response, request handler, right? Okay, so this request handler now should have this process. Where will we reach this method or this class? It is via from the request handler class. This is very tricky sort of recursion. You have to be very vigilant enough to just look into how it performs. So if we come to the request handler class, this is the request handler class. As I said, there will be middlewares now.
Yes, sir.
So we have a middleware now which we have created. What's its name? Welcome. So it should be welcome colon class, like this.
Welcome middleware.
Okay, welcome middleware. Yes, colon class, and it has added that use statement here for us. So if we have more than one middlewares, we will all add here, right? So let us quickly create another middleware also. This is welcome middleware, and then we can use copy and paste and rename it to ETH middleware .php, right?
Yes.
It will be
ETH
middleware implements middleware interface. I think everything is fine.
Yes.
So we have two middlewares now, welcome middleware and ETH middleware, right? So in the request handler.php here, what should be the second one? ETH middleware colon class, right? Hope this is clear. So in the welcome middleware, we want to welcome the user with a response, right? Add welcome text to the response, and here we need to add Eid Mubarak to the response, right? Okay, so the handle method, we are now inside. This is a bit tricky, so be tentative. This is request handle class. Here we will call the new of this class. We will instantiate this class, right?
Yes.
So for example, I want to, but it will be turn by turn. I want to do this one first.
Yes.
There is a method in PHP which is called array underscore Let me remind it. It actually extracts the first value from the array and returns that, and the array is mutated also. It is, let me, it will be here, array underscore shift.
Shift is
So yeah, so array underscore shift is used. Basically what it does, it will take this value from the array and return it. Okay, but the remainder of the array will be just this value then. Okay, so for example, if there are 10 values in array, if you use the array shift 10 times, each time the value will be extracted from it and the array will be diminished, mutated. So array underscore shift, and what should it do? This dot what? Middlewares, right? So we will assign it a variable class. So what should be this now? What should be inside the class?
This should be a welcome middleware class.
Exactly, this one, right? Okay, so if I dump, if I have to initialize this class now, so what we will do? Middleware equals new $sign class, like this. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, so now we have created the instance of this class.
Yes.
And the array now only has this value left. Next time if we call array underscore shift again, so it is like this. For example, if I call this one again in the same line, what should this class have now? This value, right? And the array will be gone and finished, right? Okay, so middleware equals new class, and now what we can do? We can call the which method, that is process. We can call the process method of the middleware, and what it is passed? Request, and one more thing also, request handler. Well done. So it is passed request, and we already have a request. This is the request, right? So $sign request, comma, where is going to be this class? This class needs to be passed to this. So what should we do? This is a question for you. The object of this class should be passed, right?
So which one?
The second one, if you go to the process method of the middleware interface, you can see it is passed the request handler object, right? So what should it do? This is a class. This class instance will be passed to it. So it will be this $sign this, just this. Whatever is the instance of this class, it will be passed to it, and then we should return, rather directly we can call return this, because this will return response, so response should be returned from this, right? Okay, so once this is returned, what next will happen?
This will call the welcome middleware.
Yeah. Sorry, we got it wrong. Yeah, it's fine. But here now, for example, we should do it stepwise. Here we have passed the we have called the process method for which class? The welcome middleware, right? So in the process method here, this one, where it is, this one is now called. For example, whatever code is written here, it will be called now. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
because it has been instantiated, and now that could, for example, if I dump anything, it will be called.
Yes, sir.
But here what will happen in the process, we have the request and the request handler.
Yes, sir.
So because this was passed to it, what we can do, request handler, because that class object is passed to it, right? So it has a property of what, handle. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
And this request will be passed to it, request. So now my question to you is, this handle method is again being called. This handle method is again being called, of which class? This request handle class.
Yes.
And if we go to the request handle class, here this method is again being called,
Yes, sir.
right? So now what will happen? Your question, this is sort of recursion. Handle is being called again, and if you remember, array underscore shift will again be called. So first item will be,
Yes,
so because the last time we removed this one,
yes, sir. So the second one.
so now this one is only in the array.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So only this one will now be called, and it will create the instance of this class and call it again, and again we will reach this middleware process here
Yes, sir.
and do something here, whatever it is, right? So we will call this, request handler dot handle again with the request. That's it. Is it fine? Handle will accept the request, and we will go there again.
Yes, sir.
But in the
Middleware array is empty.
now middleware array is empty, right? So here we will, what we will do is, if rather in the handle, if empty
This Middleware.
dollar sign this middleware, this is empty, right?
Yes, sir. Return false.
So we will return, we can create a new response directly here also. So all, if you remember, we could pass some text into it in the response new class, right? So all middlewares are empty now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let us try this. We haven't changed anything at the moment. If you go to dispatcher, for now we are just going to test things, and then we will have a proper system of all this so that you can understand well. If you go to the dispatcher, at the top of the page, the handle method here, what we will do is, I will create a new class of the request handler.
Yes, sir.
So request handler equals new request handler, where it is request handler, this is the middleware class, right?
Yes, sir.
And then what we will do, request handler request, sorry, that's the handle, handle, and handle will be passed because we already have a request class coming to the handle URL of request, so it will be passed what, this request. And after this I will use what should we do, return this, right? So the rest of the code is not run. Also this handle URL needs to return a response, right? And this already returns a response.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if I refresh the page, what are you expecting? If I refresh even this view page, process return elements where type is none return. Okay, we are not returning anything from the process, so let us return
Return must be response.
we are not returning anything,
Yes.
and this should also
Return.
return. Either process return elements where type none return in middleware ethernet.php. Did we not save it or what?
Yes, I think.
This is welcome and this is return. And the process. Okay, that was probably we had not saved it. So all middlewares are empty now. It means it has done all the processing, it has gone through all the middlewares. So if I, for example, this one where it is middleware and welcome. So if I just use dump in both of these, dump news from welcome middleware, and the same if I copy the same message in this one, so do you think it will be running?
Yes.
Is middleware, right? So both the lines are run. So what do you think? We can do a lot of processing changes and or whatever in these middlewares,
Yes,
right? Do you agree?
yes.
So you can add any number of middlewares between the request and the controller, and it will be processed. Okay, let us create another middleware, and that is going to be called authenticate. What? Normally the names of the middlewares are in kind of verbs, authenticate or message.php or something like this. Okay, so authenticate should be, we already did user name password authentication in our PHP application,
Yes,
so we cannot redo that because it will take time. We already know the logic now.
Yes.
We have a framework given in place, so this class will just mimic it is going to be a fake authentication system, but you can create your own authentication method following this pattern. Okay,
Yes.
so it is going to be a namespace should be app / middlewares, right? And the class should be authenticate. What should it extend? Middleware interface. Where it is middleware.
M capital.
Sorry, it should be in
Implements.
implements middleware interface, right? And what should be the method? So public function process. Rather, let us quickly copy that from one of these. Okay, so request needs to be, and we can copy that as well from all of these four to save time. Okay, it will also do this, and it should have a property of type boolean. That should be is authenticate. authenticated, right? So if this variable is true or false, so we can decide on that,
Yes.
right? So inside the process here we can use if not, sorry, this dot is authenticated. What should it mean? If not this authenticated, it means if this is by default we will keep it false like this.
Yes.
Okay, so if this is not authenticated, what should we do?
Execution.
We will not return this, we will directly return some response.
Yes.
So return new response and that is going to be please login. In real world you should display a login form, right?
Yes, sir.
But this is just for the demo purpose. So if this is not true, if this authentication system is not true, this variable is not true, it will return a new response and the code will be this, and even the error should be something 403, for example, 403 forbidden,
Yes, sir.
right? Because the second parameter for the constructor of response we changed today, the number is passed to it. Okay, so if this is not authenticated, this code won't run. So what does this mean? It will not call the request handler class again,
Yes.
and it will return the response immediately.
Yes, sir.
So let us try. First, what should first we do after this to take effect?
Sir, we have to add it inside the array. the
Great,
Middleware array.
well done. If we are not going to add it here,
Yes, sir. So it will not check it.
yeah, and if I add it to the last value, for example here, authenticate and class, and we should add it here also. Good, use. So now, do you think it will be run first or last?
Last time.
Last. So it has no advantage.
Yes, sir.
We should run the authenticate system. For example, if we want all of this to be authenticated first, like this, so it should be run first. Then these two will not be run. Why?
Yes, sir.
Because we are returning response immediately from here.
Yes, sir. This
Got
will
it?
be unreachable.
Yeah. So if I refresh the page, please log in.
Yes, sir.
Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So if I go to the what's that called? Form, free form. Okay, so for example, this is just like normal. For example, you have a very huge office, and at the very end, there is an officer. For example, this here some officer, this red. Let us change this color. This officer, you have appointment with this officer, right? So you will have to pass through all these cabins and then reach this officer, right? And there you will be told that sorry, you cannot meet him today, you don't have an appointment, for
Yes,
example.
sir.
So this processing will be extra. But if you have authenticated at the start and you are going to meet this person,
Yes, sir.
but here you are told that sorry, you don't have any appointment, so you can easily return from here immediately.
Yes.
So similarly, in this system, if you want a route to be authentication based, so what you should do? You should have the authenticate class at the top,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then it will return it like this. I mean, you can't move forward. But if it becomes true, the authentication becomes true, because the authenticate class, where it is, this one. If now we make the authentication true, so do you think it will now call other classes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, because it will go through all of these.
Yes, sir.
Got it? So how sophisticated is this system? In real object-oriented PHP frameworks like Laravel, Symfony, Drupal, so you can have such classes
Yes.
which will judge the whether you are allowed to access a URL or not, a route or not, right? Okay. We can even change requests. So if we have to change a request, for example, this is the request handler, we are calling the process of every class, right? So in any of the class, for example, this one, Eid middleware or welcome middleware, whatever, right? If you need to change some request, you can do it because it is passed the request here, right? So you can do something with the request like this, request this, whatever, right?
Yes, sir.
So if I will create a new middleware quickly to demonstrate something, and that is going to be trim.php. What? Trim.php. Trim.php will be a class and its namespace is going to be app slash middlewares, right? Let us quickly copy one of these so that it's easier. The class name should be trim. Implements middleware, process this, return this, right? We have not used trim function with our post, I think. Let us try. If I go to the new, right now it won't be working. Okay, just remind me, we will do it at the end. I was just demonstrating it, we are catching it in the dispatcher start.
Yes,
so that's why the rest of the code is not running. Leave it here, we will come back to this trim class. Okay. Okay, so if you can see, we will in the request handler class, this one, we are saying to return a response all middlewares are empty now if this array becomes empty.
Yes.
Okay, but in reality we should not do this. We will run the controller function, we will run the controller action, sorry, right? If all of them are empty, we will return the controller action. In reality we will do this. So what we can do is, I will come to the dispatcher. This is the dispatcher, and let us move these two lines to the bottom of the file now so that we can access. And this is going to be the last, if you remember, return, sorry, the last lines are return controller action and params, right?
Yes, sir.
So before this happens, I will copy the lines here for now, or maybe comment them out at the moment. Okay, so return controller action, and that's, we are back to normal now because I have commented those lines. The new will give us this form.
Yes.
Right? So the middlewares are not in effect right now. What we can do is, we will create a new class, and it should be in the framework, and maybe in the middleware it is fine. We will use it as a middleware. Okay, so it will be controller middleware.php, controller middleware.php. Technically it is not middleware, but I will delete it. Let us do it in the framework section directly. So new controller handler.php, right?
Yes.
Controller handler.php. Namespace should be framework, and the class name should be what?
Controller handler.
Controller handler, right? It should also implement what? The request handler interface. Request handler interface. So if it implements this, it should have a handle method, right? This should have a handle method. Public function handle, and it should be passed what? Request $request, like this. Okay, and it should return a response, and we should include both request and response here. So response, okay.
Yes.
And this should have a constructor also. Construct, because we need to if I go to dispatcher again, we need to run these three things: controller, action, and parameters array inside the class now. Okay, we need to run these three inside the class now, so we should have all of these three passed to the constructor of this new class we are building, the controller handler. Okay, so action is what? A string, params is an array, and controller is base controller, right? So if I go to controller handler, here the constructor should have base control, and we can have a private property, private base controller, then string action, good, private string, and that is going to be action, and private array params, whatever is passed. Okay, so these are property promotion, you should know about them now, and then the brackets for the controller, like this. Okay, so this class will be passed these three things while it is being initialized, and then we have all these available here, right? So I will copy this code from dispatcher, where is dispatcher? I'll copy this code quickly, move it to the controller handle method, right? Remember, I'm not calling any middleware here, next process or whatever, because I want this to be the last one. So it will be this dot controller, because we are passing it, so it becomes this dot controller, like this. But if I make it this dot controller, what do you think? This is going to be, this variable is dynamic actually. We need to call this like this with the $sign. Then this is action, so the action will become this dot $sign action, and this will become this dot $sign param. Okay, params, yes, param. this dot param. Okay, so this is going to be a variable, so we should enclose it in parentheses like this, and then it should have this dynamic value for the action, whatever it is. So we can use it inside these. So this will be the, what is it, action param, and this is dollar sign this dot, yes. And we will return it dot controller. We should have it like this. This dot controller.
Dollar sign controller. Remove the dollar sign. Why it is dollar sign controller?
Sorry. Okay, and this we can, just for clarity's sake, we can surround this with brackets also. So this is going to be the controller, this is going to be the action, and this is going to be the params, right? So basically this is the same thing which was previously done, but now it will be done by the controller class,
Yes.
right? So what do you think the next step should be?
We have to initialize it inside the dispatcher.
Exactly. So in the dispatcher, before this
Yes, sir.
return, we should create a new instance of this. So controller equals
New
or handler, controller handler equals new
controller handler.
controller handler, right?
Yes.
And it should be used at the top of the, with the use. So use framework.
It's inside the dispatcher, so we don't need to use it.
Okay, that's fine, good. So here new controller, but it will be passed three things. What are they?
So, the one that is controller, action, and then params.
Exactly. So this is that controller already we have, comma, the action,
Dollar sign action.
and params array. Params
Yes, sir.
array, right? And now we should we can directly return it, so it will have no change, it will be the same thing. I will comment this line out for now, right?
Yes.
What is this saying now?
So we have to call the, I think, the process method or something like that. We have used it
Oh yeah,
inside the controller.
it should be handle request.
Yes.
Controller
Handler.
handler should handle what? We already have request, right?
Yes, sir.
So request object, and now it will return the like this.
Yes.
Is it okay? So if I refresh the page, hopefully everything will be fine, nothing will have changed, it's working still fine, right? Okay, now we have a system in place. We now need to request use these two again, request handler, like this. But let us add a new key to the request handler first. So if I go to the, where it is, request
Inside
handle
HTTP,
class,
yes.
middleware request handler class, right? If we add a constructor to this function, public function underscore construct, and it should be passed request, controller handler and controller handler, right?
Yes.
And if I make it private, so it means it will be assigned to the this this variable also. So we can now pass the control handle to this, and in the constructor in the dispatcher, sorry, here now I need to pass what? The request handler should pass what? Please tell me. This object, controller response equals this. So it will be passed to this class now. Sign like this. Is this okay? Pass is type controller handler.
The first one, the controller handler will be passed to it.
Request. No, we should make it controller. Sorry, in the response, this one should be response. Right? Type controller handler. Did we save it? This is actually a response now.
Yes.
So it is passing the response here. I think there is no error now.
Yes.
Okay, it was not saved actually. Okay, so request handler is passed this. Right? Now inside the request handler, what logic we can use? If empty this middleware,
Yes.
if empty this middleware, so what we should do? We can use
The controller of
exactly.
yes, sir, controller response.
So return we can directly pass this
Yes, sir.
controller handler, and this is actually the response.
Response.
Okay.
Yes.
So if it becomes empty, but we can do it one more way also from the dispatch, just like you mentioned. We will just pass it this one,
Yes, sir.
and we can call the handle method there
Yes, sir. There.
directly.
Yes, sir.
So that will be easier. So let me comment this line. We will pass it the controller handler again. Normally we should not be doing it like this. We should be passing the objects. So controller handler, and in the request handler here we will make it again as what? Controller handler, and here we can call this now. So if empty middleware, this dot controller handler and handle will be passed what? Request. We already have the request, and the request is, we already have the request, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now I will go back to the dispatcher and return the handle method of it. That's it.
Request handler.
Return request handler handle
Yes.
handle request, right? Okay, if I refresh the page, what are you expecting? The
Middlewares.
that is, if I request the page, all the three middle, you can see the dumps, all the two have been run.
Yes, sir.
And the page is this, because we are running this code inside the request handler. If it is empty, if the middlewares are empty, so we are using the normal controller stuff.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
So the page, because they are empty, so we are getting all the
Yes, sir. We
values.
got the controllers.
we got the controller running.
Yes.
If I change the authenticate middleware, for example, this page needs authentication. Do you agree?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Somebody should be logged in, then they should access it.
Yes, sir.
So what should I do? I should make the authenticate to false,
Sir.
just for the demo purpose.
Yes.
In real world, you should be using whatever you do to make this variable false if username and password don't match. And then now I refresh the page, so it says please login. So what you have done, if I go to free form, so what we have done is, for example, this is the resource we wanted to access, but now authentication is required and it won't do it for us, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now I had told you to remind me of the trim class we were making. This is the trim class, right? And I will for now just hide it to true so that we can access it. Okay. So if I add something, maybe with the spaces in framework, student new, okay. So if in the name I give 2 or 3 spaces, for example Salman, and then spaces also, right? In the father name I gave some space, do you think this will be saved with the spaces, or we have implemented some trimming function?
We have to use a trim function.
To trim function, right?
Yes.
And this should be normal now. And if I add student, okay, we'll fix this also. Do remind me this as well. But at least probably if I access all student now, so we have the Salman, but maybe we have given it some trim function already, but let me check it in the database. So you can see there is some space in the name. You can see there is space. Do you agree? And it should not be so. So just for the demo purpose right now, what we can do is, we have created a class called trim. It has all the required use statements and it implements the middleware. It has the request and this. So what we can do is, this line returns request unchanged. This is unchanged because it passes this and we are not doing anything with the request.
Yes, sir.
So if I, for example, do something with the request, probably, so if I, for example, request, if you remember, has what? A post array. Do you remember?
Yes, sir.
And post has what? That name is probably name, I think, or any post array, okay?
Yes, sir.
Any element in the post array. So what we can do is, we can run for each on this.
Yes, sir.
Trim the function and this request will be changed.
Yes, sir.
But there is an easier way you already have probably used. So request.post will be, we can use not trim but array underscore map for each element of the post array.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes.
So if it is name, father name, whatever, so array underscore map, and what it should do, trim, and request post. Is this okay? What is he saying?
Small parenthesis. It's a function.
No, it's the name of the function. Trim. Modify constant trim. How does array underscore map work?
So we have to use it for each element. Use a small parenthesis inside.
No, this is that will run it.
Yes, sir. We need it for each element.
For each element, right?
Yes, sir. For each element we have a callback function.
Yeah, so array
inside
underscore
the map.
test. I think we are doing it right. Okay, this is not constant, this is string actually. Sorry for this. This is the name of the function. So this function will be called for every member of this array. Request post. It will be called for this, and the return value should be the same array but with the trim applied.
Yes.
Right? So what we have done, we can do it in for each also, but this is the shortcut.
Yes.
So what has this done, Wasim?
Actually, sir, it's trim the extra spaces.
Yeah, and so request has changed now. This line, this request is passed to this process function, and before sending it back to the handle method, that request handler, it has been changed. So now let us try if this, but one step is still left, and that is
We have to add that.
we have to add that to the request handler middleware array. So maybe at the top or the second position. So it should be trim
Yes.
class comma, and trim should be used at the top of the
Page.
page. So where it is? Here. Let us quickly this, and this is trim. Okay,
Yes.
so we have added trim class. Now if I try, let us try if everything is fine. We will have, I just wonder if there was no Stack Overflow or Google, so what would we do? Maybe we would have wasted a lot of time. So we are thankful to them. So here we should have what? New.
Add new student.
And now again we will have some spaces in the name. Maybe the other name also. Email and this, and submit. If I refresh the page in the database, the last one, this is that, and it has no space.
Yes, sir.
So the trim has what? So if you need something so that you can cache the request, right?
Yes.
And
So here the trim works in the string format, so first in the space.
no, it's the name of the function. We are just letting the program know that you have to run the function, this function. So this is actually the reference to the function, the name of the function actually. We are
The trim.
trim this. We are asking array underscore map to run this function. So if we actually use this, it was complaining for the constant because the names, it's a string actually.
Yes, sir.
So we are just asking array map to run this function. So which function? The trim. And you are also calling using the brackets, for example this. So if we use this, it means this will be run immediately.
Yes,
We
sir.
don't want to run it. We only want
Function.
kind of a callback it is to run it for every element of the array. So what is that function? We can use a function here as a callback or the name of function.
So we are just passing it in, it will be applied to the request post.
Exactly.
This is a built-in, sir.
This is built-in method. You can use it for any string actually to remove spaces. And we have named the class also as trim. So you can call it call it as a wrapper for the PHP trim function. So is this clear up to now?
Yes.
We are able to create middlewares, and those middlewares are okay. One more thing. So in middleware we are just dumping variables here, right? But before, even we are not changing any of the responses, but what we can do is,
These are the specific tasks which, for which the middleware is here with us.
yeah, between the request and the controller action, now we can manipulate both the requests as well as the responses, right?
Okay, play with it.
Yes. So for example, this is ETH and we don't have this initially. Here it is, this middleware, right? But we want with all the routes Eid Mubarak message printed
Yes.
at the bottom of the response, right?
Yes.
So what we can do is, in the Eid middleware class, we will response equals this, for example, okay, and then we will return $ response like this, okay. So this is, we are catching it and now we can change it. So you remember that there is a method on which is called get body.
Yes.
So response get body, and then we will concatenate dot Eid Mubarak with it and assign it to what, response dot set body. One thing I should say sorry for, I call it dot because I have got used to JavaScript also. So you should be, I mean, you should know this dot means arrow in PHP. So response dot set body, and the set body should be whatever the get body of the response is, dot concatenation of this, and that's it. Is this okay?
Yes.
We needed it so that we can have the older value also. Otherwise, the response only will be Eid Mubarak then, right? And we are returning it. Do you think this will work? No, because we have removed
Yes, sir,
the
Eid Mubarak from there.
the Eid Mubarak from this. So
Eid Mubarak.
maybe here we will add it again, or maybe Control Z is fine. This Eid Mubarak, right? So all of this will happen. At the end, this controller handle will be called. And if I refresh the page, sorry, should be student/new. Okay, so this is just for demo purposes, no styling, anything, but with the button you can now see what, Eid Mubarak. So the output has been changed.
Yes.
If you need something like this, you can place middlewares between your request and the response. Even for example, if there is, you don't want somebody to be, for example, this is Christmas Day or Eid Day, you don't want somebody to use this form at all. So you can, for redirect purposes, you can create another middleware and it will have some logic of some other page.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you can do it, all is then your imagination, your creativity. You can use middlewares for those purposes. Okay. So is this clear, or any questions?
Yes.
Okay, so we have implemented the middleware system now. So just a recap. If you go to request handler.php, so here, and this by the way is inside the request handler class. Inside the middlewares we have all the classes which will be serving as the middlewares. So this is framework actually, and you never change the framework. So if I have to add extra middleware classes, I will have to add them here. So do you think this is the right way?
Yes. No.
Just like routes, we have specified a separate route file where we are able to add routes. So similarly, we need to add these middleware somewhere else. Also, this is global to each and every route now. So whichever we access, all of these are fired. because you can go to dispatcher code and you will see that it is running for all of the routes, but it should be route specific, not global. For example, on a route I don't need authentication, so we should not have authentication there. Similarly, if I don't need trim, so there should be no trim on that route, right? So in order to achieve this, we have to change this middleware system, and to start with, initially we will just remove all of these from here, and we will make it just an empty array. Okay, so if it is an empty array, what should you be getting if I refresh this page? Will there be an Eid Mubarak? No, just bare bone normal stuff for controller and actions. Right now we have to create a new file in the config directory, because that config belongs to you, the user, and not the framework. So in the config directory, if you remember, we have right now two files, routes and services.php, right? So let us create another one. We will call it middlewares or middleware.php. Middlewares is the right word, maybe middlewares.php, right? Here we will define an array, simple array, we'll call it middlewares equal to an array, and we will return the middlewares array from here. Okay, let us call it middlewares or middleware, whatever. Here we will add all of those classes. So and we will add something like this, okay, with an associative array, for example authentication. So we will create simple authenticate key and the authenticate class, then right,
should be a double arrow. Yes.
okay. So this is the key. You can call it we can access this class with just this authenticate key.
Yes.
You can call it alias. Okay, then we have trim is a small one, and it should be trim class. Then we had what else we had?
Middleware.
Welcome. So welcome will be just welcome, and the value should be confirm class, and the last one should be Eid Mubarak. So Eid, maybe just Eid we need. Okay, it should be Eid middleware colon class. Okay, this is just normal PHP array, but now it is keyed up with some alias and then the class name.
Yes,
right? And we should include all those here as well.
use the trim.
Is this clear?
Yes.
Now we are returning middlewares. Even if we don't return middleware, but we can catch it there. Okay, so the next step is we will include this into the index.php file for now. Okay, so the in index.php, this is index.php. Here, just like we are including these two files, routes and services, so here we will require base path not, and what's the name of the file is config middlewares.php. It is middleware or middlewares?
Yeah,
That is
middlewares.
middlewares.php. Okay, good. So here we are adding these two, this file, sorry. So it means that array now is available to us in this index.php page. Do you agree?
Yes.
And in the dispatcher, we need to pass that array here as well. Or Middlewares, right?
Yes.
Now it is saying that we don't have the third parameter.
Yes.
So what we will do is go to the framework dispatcher, and here the third parameter should be this one. This should be Middlewares, and this is just an array, right? Simple array, Middlewares, and we will assign it to this dot Middlewares equals Middlewares, and we should have a private array Middlewares. Is this clear?
Yes.
This is simple stuff. So now if we pass the middleware array to this, so it will be inside this middleware array,
Yes.
right? And if I just for the sake of this, if I dump $sign this dot middlewares, and we haven't yet passed it, or we have in the index.php should pass it to, okay, we already have passed it.
Yes.
And one thing you can easily, though it is available in the code, but we can assign it to the variable here middlewares, so that we can know where the variable is coming from. Okay, we should be doing the same here, but for now it's fine. So middleware is, if I refresh the page, what are you expecting? We are expecting all the values. So they are coming now from the config middlewares file to the index file, and from the index file they are being passed to the dispatcher, and we have those available here. The next step is, if you go to the routes.php, if you remember, these are routes. So one of the advantages of moving this code outside of the request header class was that we should be able to have something unique for each route, right? So for example, I want to have this view available only to authenticated users, right? So here in the array, this is that array which we pass with a route. We should have another key, just like we have controller student, action is this, another one should be comma middlewares, and it should have the value of something. For example, if I want 2, so I can pass 2 middlewares here, but for now I just want authentication and maybe something about the EID. Okay, so these two I want, for example. So one of the ways is we can use array here, but normally it's easier to use piped characters like we use in Twig. So for example, one should be authenticate and then a pipe character, and then the other one should be EID. What was the name? EID. Okay, these are the keys of that middleware array. Remember, these two are coming from where it is,
inside the
middlewares. So these are the keys actually.
Yes.
You can use this also, but the logic now is that we should, so that we can easily remember it. Okay, routes. Maybe we don't need any space here, or just for clarity. Okay, so if we need any kind of middleware, we will add just a pipe character and add that to a particular route. Is this clear? Now these two routes only should be run, these two classes should be only used as middleware for this route, student and ID and view, right? Okay. So how to make these values available in dispatcher? Anybody, any idea? They are already available. How? If you remember, the details array we get from the route match. Okay, so details should have, if I dump detail and I go to any of the view for student, so maybe say which one, detail. So you can see the array now has ID this, controller this, action this, and middleware is these two. Now those values are available to us. This second array in the routes is very powerful, I mean application process, where you can have a lot of such values for your own purpose. Okay. Now the next thing is, should we pass this array to the request handler class or this array? Now for this route, this array, right?
Yes, sir. This one.
Not all of them.
Yes, sir.
But also, if we get something, listen, this is that again, that process I was telling you. You should have the process in your mind in order to code something. You don't have anything in your mind to do something, you can't code. So this is, let us compare it here. We will pass this to the request handler class, which will be saved in, let me just show you. This is the request handler class in the middleware. Here now we have made it empty, so we should assign those two classes to this variable in the request handler, right? But now they are just strings, because we have dumped it. If you can see, they are strings, they are not actual classes.
Yes.
So we should be getting actual class against this authenticate and actual class against this each.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is actually a string, so we have to change it to array so that actual class is stored here and actual class is stored
Yes,
here,
sir.
right?
Yes.
So that's what we are going to do now. In the dispatcher, rather than dumping it, we will get it removed, and just before request handler, just before this line, request handler request,
Yes, sir.
we should be assigning something. We have no setter value, so request handler is the property private?
I think yes, sir. Send the request handler.
Okay, so let us for now make it public so that you can easily access it. We can have a setter and getter values for this, but let us do it this way now.
Dispatcher.
So inside the dispatcher, we can use middlewares now,
Yes, sir.
and this should be equal to what? Some array, middlewares array, right?
Yes, sir.
Whatever it is. So now we have to calculate it. How to do it? So if the details has array underscore key underscore exists what? Middleware or middlewares?
Middlewares.
In what? In details. Then what? It means if this array if this key exists in this whole details, right? So it exists, right? So what we should do is we should grab that. So details middlewares. So this is going to be the string, right?
Yes, sir.
So if it is a string, we should convert it into an array. So how should we do that? Explode. So explode the it by pipe, right?
Yes, sir.
The details array. So it will convert it into array. We can call it details middleware array, right? Now it will have these two values as, or let me just dump it. For now let me comment it, dump details middleware array. What will be here inside this array?
Authenticate and ETH.
Exactly, authenticate and ETH.
Yes, sir.
So this is just an array, authenticate and ETH now, right? Okay, so but we don't need authenticate. What we need is we should be having initialized objects of this class.
Yes, sir.
Initialized objects of this class. Okay.
I think that this is not the dynamic way of doing it.
Let us do it. Maybe we can improve this. So one more thing, if somebody provides, for example, I go to the config again. We have all the middlewares listed in this page, on this, right, in this array, and all of them are these trim, welcome, ETH. But if somebody in the routes specifies, for example, Laravel, so we don't have this.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
So if a value which is specified in this middleware route line and it is not in the middleware array, this one, so if only it is there, then we will do all this, otherwise we will skip that, right? So we can write that logic here as well, where it is. Okay, so now this is so how to write it? If array underscore key underscore exists, which key?
Middleware.
For each. We should have for each now on this array is value or whatever. So each time the value will be that key. So if that array underscore, if now if array underscore key underscore exists, that value inside what? Yeah, so not details, the one which was passed to this
middleware.
This dot middleware, because that's the whole array.
Main array.
So this dot middlewares, right? If it exists, it means only then do all this, otherwise
Yes, sir.
we will be skipping. Now we have Laravel, so it won't do it for Laravel, right?
Yes.
Okay, once this happens, so now we have this middlewares array, right? But it is just, if you go to the, it is just these two, authenticate and ETH. So if you remember the array underscore walk function, right, we will use this array to get the value from this array, this value, and then use the get container get method to initialize it and save it inside the array. So here what
array underscore walk.
yeah, so array underscore walk,
Name of the array.
name of the array, so that is going to be details, middleware array, and then a function should have a value but with an ampersand, right, like this,
$sign.
like this, and it should be assigned this details array, or we should not, it will change it, right?
Yes.
Okay, here this value is, for example, if it is authenticate like this, first time it will be authenticate, right?
Yes, sir.
Second time it will be the other one.
Key there, sir.
So we will check this key of this dot middlewares array, this one.
Yes.
So this dot middlewares and then array, and that is going to be what, the value,
Yes.
right? So what will it give us?
It will give us the values.
The class,
Yes, sir.
this class,
Yes.
this class app middleware authenticate, right?
Yes.
So we'll call it middleware class equals this dot value, right? And we will initialize it now with the new keyword.
Yes.
So do you think we should use the new keyword?
No, sir.
Hmm?
We have to use a container class.
You can use container because container is available here.
Yes.
This dot
Container.
container
And then get.
dot get,
Yes.
and we will call pass this to it.
Yes.
Okay. What should we assign it to?
$sign.
Value.
Yes.
$sign value, so that it is changed. So it means now that this array which previously had text in it will have the initialized classes,
Yes, sir.
and this, if I dump it, for example, after this if for each, and if array underscore key this, if I dump this here, what should we be getting? Any guesses?
Objects of these classes.
Exactly. Previously we were just getting strings,
Yes.
the string keys. Now hopefully we were getting this.
Yes, sir.
I got closure. Illegal offset type in 91. Let me just check what is new middle. That.
You wrote the ampersand sign with the value. So we remove the ampersand sign function.
This one
Yes. This is
not needed.
no, sir.
So then we will have the return value. And this is fine, I think. I'll just screw up this. Middleware class is this dot middlewares? Is it available here?
Sir, I think we are accessing the detail array outside the if condition.
Yeah, you may be right. Let me just. Illegal offset type in framework, this. This dot middlewares value equals, okay, we are setting the value inside it. Just I think we should change the logic a bit. This for each is not needed, so if I remove it for now, because array underscore walk itself is kind of a for each loop. So if array underscore walk this function, here we should check if this value exists inside the this dot middlewares. So if array underscore key underscore exists, value inside this dot middlewares. If this exists, then we should do something, and that should be we will get the value from the middlewares array. It's going to be a middleware class, and then we should initialize it.
Yes.
And the value should become the initialized version of the key, string key. And now if I dump it, the middleware, this dump details middleware array, so hopefully, so you can see now it has the initialized versions of those two classes. If I add, for example, now just for the demo purpose, if I go to the middlewares and I add, sorry, not the middlewares but the routes, and here I add, for example, the ETH one, by the way, ETH already was there. If I add a third one, welcome. So let us check if it creates that as well. So now we have a welcome class also.
Yes.
Is this clear?
Yes.
Now the next step is to pass this data to the request handler class, and the request handler class is this, and it should be assigned to this middlewares key, and we already have that probably commented out. I will remove the dumps, we already have a lot of them. So here we should have a request handler, a certain method for middlewares, but we can do it directly as well. We have made it in public variable at the moment. So request handler middlewares, it should be this details middleware array, like this, right?
Yes,
so it will become, it will move basically to this middlewares array. But if you remember, in the middlewares, in all of the middlewares we have defined, for example, inside the source middlewares authenticate, we are creating the new, not in the middleware, rather the request handler. If you remember, we were creating the new class.
Yes, sir.
What should we do now? Because these are not class names now, they are objects actually. So should we be having this?
No, sir.
Nothing. You can call it, we already have the middleware now, right?
Yes.
So this one will be a middleware. We don't need this line. We can comment it out now and convert it to middleware. Got it?
Yes, sir.
So even we have saved ourselves from creating the instances within the request handler, right? So if we refresh the page, hopefully things will be working fine. and you can see we have the Eid Mubarak already.
Yes, sir.
If I from the route, if I remove this Eid Mubarak, do you think this will be here?
No, sir.
Because that class won't be instantiated and used. So from the routes, if I remove the Eid one, like this, right? So now we don't have Eid Mubarak. Similarly, the trim function, if for example there is a route which is used for saving records in the database, right? The process one, for example.
Yes.
So we can add trim to that.
Yes.
Got it?
Yes. According to the needs.
Yeah. Similarly, for example, if somebody route needs session started, so you can create a middleware where you can just start the session and it will be inside that route. Inside that route. Yes. So we studied a lot of things today, and let me recap them. First, initially, rather than just closing the lecture now, I had to do one more thing, and tomorrow we will further improve it. But in normal in frameworks like Laravel, Symfony, I'm not much aware of Laravel, but in Symfony and Drupal, we have a kernel class. So what kernel class does is actually the dispatcher class does whatever the kernel class does mostly. So I had previously told you as well that our dispatcher class actually is also a kernel class.
Yes.
So we can change it to kernel. And from now on we will call it kernel.php, right?
Yes.
Kernel.php.
Inside the index.php, we have to change it.
Yes, and the name of the class should now be kernel. And one more change we need to do. Normally inside the kernel, this handle URL is called handle, just handle. It handles a request and returns a response. And in the next class, because this function method has become very long, it has a lot of code,
Yes.
it should not be the way. So we will break it down into further methods also,
Yes.
so that it is easily maintained. But for now, I'll go to index.php, and here rather than dispatcher we will call it now kernel, and this should be
Use kernel.
handle, and we should change it to kernel. Now in a subsequent lecture, if I call dispatcher, if I go to dispatcher again, actually I would mean to go to kernel. So thank you very much. So actually let me recap. I had to recap it because it was a lot of stuff we studied. We created a response a redirect class also initially.
Yes.
Before that we changed the container code so that it returns a singleton. That was the code. And the redirect class was added to the HTTP redirect response, and it extends the response class. And for this we had to add a constructor to the response as well. And for this change, we needed to add the entry in the in the services.php for response also, because string was being initialized, that old problem we had. So these small changes we made, and then we embarked on middlewares, and we created two interfaces for middleware and request handler. And the request handler class was created inside the framework HTTP request handler. It has a method of handle, and we also added a constructor to it so that the controller handler we created should be passed to it. And the controller handler basically handles the same thing which dispatcher was doing for us previously, to call the controller actions. So we moved that code to the controller handler, and this class is initiated inside the dispatcher. Now we call it kernel, this one. So we initialize controller handler here and pass it to the request handler. But we had to improve our code. We created the middlewares.php in the config and added all the classes. So in future, if you need any further middlewares, you first will have to add them here, and these are the keys, or you can call aliases of these classes. Then it is included in index.php, this file, the middlewares, and we pass it to the kernel, or previously we were calling it dispatcher. The dispatcher or the kernel holds it in this property of middlewares,
Yes.
and then it is passed by all that logic we just created to the handler here. We assign it to the handler, and it completes our lecture today. So see you next time. We'll be studying events, and that will be our final topic for this MVC framework. Thank you very much.